Peter King joins us on the Bud Light guest line. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. And with this appearance, I officially hereby declare an open to this year's Super Bowl, because we really haven't talked about it much. We were kind of saving it from Peter, who joins us from Arizona. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today. How are you?
No problem. I'm 2 beers in. Is that okay?
That is fantastic. We wouldn't have it any other way unless maybe it was 3 or 4. Then things could get really, really interesting. Before we get to your neck of the woods, we'll start in our neck of the woods, where Tim Kawakami today uncorked a little nugget that Brock Purdy and, the situation that obviously left the 49ers looking for another quarterback in the NFC title game. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo might have been more motivated had things not gone sour late in the year between Shanahan, Lynch, and Garoppolo over whatever. Tim is just speculating. With all that you know around the 49ers, did you catch wind, Peter, of something being rotten in Camelot that might prevent Jimmy from wanting to return to be an emergency in the playoffs?
No, I did not. And I did hear about that today, but my eyebrows were raised. I never heard anything about that. So I just don't know. I'm not saying it isn't true. I'm sure it is. Tim is very good, very well plugged in. I don't know anything about it. Here's the thing that I don't know. I don't want to say it surprised me, but I think that if Jimmy Garoppolo were even 70%, I would have wanted him to be back up Philadelphia and have Josh Johnson not be dressed for that game. But obviously, according to Kyle, he wasn't ready to play, at least according to Kyle. So I take him at his word, and, we'll see what happens. We'll see what develops out of this.
Is there, well, again, I'm asking you to speculate, and it's unfair, but this is inherently unfair. You talking to us every week is just not a good idea for you. Is there a possibility that Kyle Shanahan, being a football coach, could hold Jimmy Garoppolo's injury history against him, and that might be all that it would take?
Well, I am pretty sure that Kyle knew that whenever the last game of the season was after that, this was not, okay, we're not kidding around anymore. This is it. Jimmy, you're going to be a free man at the end of this year. So I think we all figured at that point that, that Jimmy Garoppolo absolutely unequivocally was gone. But I don't think that has much, I didn't think anyway at the time that had much or anything to do with the depth chart in the playoffs. I always thought that when Jimmy Garoppolo was healthy enough, if not completely healthy, but when he was healthy enough, that he was going to be dressing as a backup quarterback. I didn't think he was going to usurp Purdy, but I thought that he would be dressing as a backup quarterback. And so my assumption was that he just wasn't healthy. And, but Ray, I never thought that it was going to extend beyond this year.
Peter King with us here on 95.7 The Game. So you've touched down in Arizona to cover yet another Super Bowl in your career. We have seen Super Bowl week sort of, go through a lot of changes just in the last few years in terms of Media Row, what it used to be, what it is now, the way that they let fans in and around it, what has happened of media night, the access that used to feel like it came from an awful lot of this week. It's now turned into a 365-day-of-the-year operation. What is the most valuable part of the media's week to you, Peter, as you get ready for the game on Sunday?
All right, I'll tell you exactly what the most valuable part is. Today, as we are reaching the end of Wednesday, it's 6:05 p.m. here. The media availabilities today, Kansas City was in the morning. I missed that because of a bunch of job-related things, work-related things. But I did go out to the Eagles. And I'll tell you one of the things. There's a lot that I curse about the Super Bowl. You know, the mayhem, the fact that I'm basically competing with Carrot Top to interview people. And I'm only slightly exaggerating there. But, yes, Carrot Top was here today and yesterday. And, man, he's aging, shall we say. Anyway, you know, but the one thing, and it happened this afternoon, I spent 25, 30 minutes with Howie Roseman and found out a lot of really interesting things, to me anyway, about how this team has been built. Then I spent 20 minutes with a guy named Jeff Stoutland, the line coach of the Eagles, who, you know, is lording over now the best offensive line in football and one of the best offensive lines in recent years. And so those are the kind of things, because Jeff Stoutland's not normally available. Howie Roseman is not normally available. That is what I love about Super Bowl week. For a couple of days, everyone in the organization is available for you to talk to. And luckily, because I have a relationship with Howie, I was alone with him for that period of time. And those are the kind of things that I truly appreciate about Super Bowl week. Not a lot else I really appreciate about it, because it is an S show. But, you know, hey, this is what America likes, I guess. So I don't want to be the guy who is, you know, yelling, "Get off my lawn." I truly do appreciate being able to get exposed to all these guys who, in many cases, I'm not normally able to speak to.
Let's get back to the S show. Are you getting a sense that New Orleans is going to be able to close the deal with Derek Carr, or does this look like an unpleasant marriage that's going to end catastrophically for everybody?
I don't really know, Ray. I've not talked to... I know Mickey Loomis pretty well. I was planning to check in with him about where that stood by the end of the week. But as of now, I don't know. I do know this, that if I were Derek Carr right now, there's two teams I'd be very interested in. I'd be interested in New Orleans. I'd be interested in the New York Jets, because both of those teams have good defenses. Jets are a little better, but you know that Jets are probably going to wait for Aaron Rodgers. And so Derek Carr is going to get a job. That's not in dispute. I believe that the issue is going to be who's going to step out first. And I think New Orleans is going to step out because they just don't have enough faith in either Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton. And look, Ray, we saw it this year. We saw Derek Carr's play absolutely cratered this year. And cratered to the point where the last 2 weeks of the season, where for whatever reason, as bizarre as this sounds, he left, and you know they were happy that he left. It was just the weirdest thing for a guy who, you know, 6 months ago was a franchise cornerstone. And so, you know, obviously something went wrong there. And I think that the first team to go out and show Derek Carr some love is probably going to be rewarded with employing him next year.
And since you brought it up, both the name and the word weird, what happens with Aaron Rodgers? Give me your best guess.
Say it again, Ray.
You mentioned weird. You mentioned his name. What's your best sense on what happens with Aaron Rodgers?
Well, you know, I was on the Dan Patrick show today, and I said, does Aaron Rodgers ever do anything normal? Does he ever say, you know, I'm going to go up to Tahoe for a few days, have a few beers, you know, take some long walks and try to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life? No. It's either I'm going to go on a ayahuasca expedition to Peru for 2 weeks, or I'm going to go sit in a dark. I have never heard of this in my life. Have you ever heard of anybody trying to decide what they want to do with their lives or with their life, and go and sit in a dark room for 4 days?
Only in a torture situation.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. It's weird. It's just weird. And I don't know. And look, all the power to him if that gives Aaron Rodgers clarity. And I'm, whatever. Everybody's different, and I get that. But this is just, a succession of weirdness, in my opinion. But that's where we are. I still think that if I were Aaron Rodgers, as much as it would be in following in Brett Favre's footsteps, which I think would probably make him rest, I think that the smartest thing for him to do, and the chance in the next 2 years that he would have to take his team fairly far, would be to go to the New York Jets. Bad part of it is that all the quarterbacks are in the AFC. But the Jets have a top 5 defense in the NFL. They have a top 5 defensive coach in the NFL in Robert Saleh. And I just think that I think that team is a decent quarterback away from winning 11 games and being the 5th seed in the AFC. So I don't know. Will Aaron Rodgers see it that way? I don't know the answer.
Peter, I hope that you've got somebody expense accounting a big fat ribeye with your name on it somewhere for you tonight, and that you got to get going really soon. So let me just get to 2 things before we let you go here. Last week you said that Steve Wilks would be a good fit as defensive coordinator of the Niners. He is the choice. What do you like about him in San Francisco?
There's 2 things about him that I've always really liked. Okay, number one, if you talk to guys who played for Steve Wilks, they will talk about him the way that Fred Warner talks about DeMeco Ryans. And that is what I want out of my defensive coordinator. I want a guy who my players are going to go to the wall for. Okay, you never have heard, even in Arizona, you never heard players say, geez, that guy's kind of cheesy, or there's this wrong with him or that wrong with him. And I think the second thing that I would really like about him right now anyway is he really knows this division. And I'm sure that Kyle Shanahan looks at this situation as, hey, listen, we don't need to overturn what we've done here. We need to continue doing great things with this defense. We've got a real smart guy who's not going to look to reinvent the wheel, and who every guy who's ever played for him will just say, that's a guy I really like to play for. So I'm bullish on that hire. I think it's a good one.
Peter, what are you more comfortable betting against? And these are 2 uncomfortable things to bet against. Would you rather bet against this Eagles defense or Patrick Mahomes?
Oh, my God. I mean, if I feel like I'd rather be burned at the stake than answer that question, because I love both. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles defense was just absolutely awesome, especially down the stretch. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult, especially with Mahomes being a little hobbled and having his offensive weaponry pretty hobbled. I think it's going to be very hard for them. But I guess the way I would answer that is I look at football today, and I look at trying to figure out football games today in thinking about the players who I really respect a lot, who I would say, if I had one game to win, give me this guy. If I had one game to win tomorrow, even with a high ankle sprain, give me Patrick Mahomes, of any player in the NFL. And that obviously includes all the quarterbacks. And it's no sign of disrespect to anybody else, but it is just a simple acknowledgement that every game that Patrick Mahomes plays, I find it hard to believe he's not going to win. Now, this one is just a little different because of all the injuries among his skill players and the fact that this year Jalen Hurts is 16-1 as a starting quarterback. Excuse me, and has one of the best offensive lines we've ever seen. But the one other thing I would say just about the Eagles right now is, and I've been around them a little bit in the last 3 or 4 weeks, this is a really, really confident team. It's not that Kansas City's unconfident. Philadelphia just has the feel. I think this Eagles team is a touchdown better than the Eagles team that won the Super Bowl 5 years ago. And, so I just think this Eagles team is going to be very, very hard to beat.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us tonight, all football season long. Get that frog out of the back of your throat with the third beer. You've earned it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, fellas. Take care.
Really appreciate it. Peter King, just a quick one, because it is dinner hour in Phoenix, and if you want to get the good cut at Mastro's, you got to get there early.